Hello everyone, how are you guys? So we are meeting after a long time and today we'll be discussing about async and await. Okay, so when we're saying async and await, it's not just about async and await, it's about how this whole journey is starting. We can start with the thought process of okay, we know about async await, but in a general thought process and broader thought process, what we want some things to be asynchronous. Okay, and when we say we want some things to be asynchronous, that is broadly in the sense that okay, we were doing this task A, but this task A is gonna take some time, and we want to jump to task B because of some reason. Okay, in the logic, in the programming logic, it can be different reasons, but because of some reason I want to jump to task B for right now, but later on when I will have the bandwidth, I want to come back and finish this task. Okay, so for that part I want to make it asynchronous, and for these things we will start to jump between different areas where why we are eventually leading to this. There could be different ways of solving the same problem, so how we are eventually reaching down to this, that would be our eventual goal. Okay, so hello Harshit, good evening. Yeah, good evening to you, and we will proceed with the session. Okay, so let me share my screen real quick, and let's be super enthusiastic. Okay, cool. Share screen, window, select, and share. My screen is visible. I think, yep, it's now. Oh no, I think it's not properly visible. It's only showing part of the screen. Stop sharing. Share, share screen, Windows, entire screen, good to go. Now it's visible. Awesome. So we start with the thought process of callback. Okay, so let us suppose we were doing something. What we were doing, let us suppose we said let a is equal to name, or name is equal to something. Name is equal to Anushka. Awesome. And we wanted to say that for set timeout. Okay, we want to give a function what to do, and after 1 second do this. Let us suppose console log hello name. Awesome. And after that, what we want to say, console log done. Cool. So what we're saying is that this is a task that I need to do. This is the task I want to do, but I want to delegate it for some further time. So what I will say that I will attach it to set timeout, and set timeout will say that it is, you're providing me a callback that I will do after this timeout is done. So like after 1000 millisecond, I will call this. So even though in a synchronous fashion, what we could think that this this will run, and after that this console log would run, and after that this would run, but this is not the function that is getting executed right now. This is just a callback. So we will execute this, and this execution will only ask us to call for this function after 1000 millisecond. Awesome. And then we execute this. Cool. Node callbacks.js. Awesome. Done. And after 1 second, hello Anuj. This is what we all expected. Then what's the problem with this? Problem is that when we are doing things like this, generally you will have callback then within that. So after this is done, do the next thing. After this is done, do the next thing. After this is done, do the next thing. And because of that, you would be in the, you would be stuck in the cycle of callbacks, and that is called callback hell. Okay, so you don't want to be stuck in the callback hell. Cool. Fine. Then what is better than that? So potentially, what rather you could do, potentially you could say that I want promises. Okay. Or promises a bit better than that. Promises are simply saying, okay, you want to do something. I wouldn't directly do this for you. I would tell you, I will just give you a promise right now. Okay. Something like if you want to build a house. Awesome. you will need like what? Cement, you will need labor, bricks, sand, water, and labor. Cool. So there can be the synchronous way of doing things, that I will first go for cement. When I will, receive the cement, I will go for bricks. When I receive the bricks, I will go for sand. When I receive the sand, I will go for water. When I receive the water, I will go for labor. And when all those things are available, I will build the house. That's definitely a possibility, but the problem with this is that we are waiting for the things that generally would take a longer time, and that are not directly dependent on us, right? If you paid, if you asked an order for cement, and you paid the amount, then it's on their responsibility to complete the order. They would be arranging some things from somewhere and then responding those things to you. Okay, so there is a lot of non you can say that there is a lot of time in it where the processing from your end is not going on. So same thing can happen in the case of computer as well. Okay, so what you want your computer to do is to efficiently utilize its resources. So the time it's not utilizing its processor for computing something, that shouldn't be your responsibility to like wait for those things to get over. Otherwise your processor would be idle for that time. Okay, so what rather you could do, you could use the benefit of a promise. Okay, so what we could say that const promise is equal to a new promise that would expect me to, sorry, const promise that would expect me to provide a function, and that function would provide me two variables, that is resolve and reject. Okay, so resolve is a callback function that is to be called when you solve this, like when you successfully completed this promise. And reject is the function to be called if you are not able to successfully complete this. Two cases are possible, right? So let us suppose you say that after, let us suppose 2 seconds, I was successful, but after 1 second, I was failed. Okay, two different possibility. But if you say that I would be, resolving this in 2 seconds, and after I will be failing this in 1 second, then potentially this will, get called first. So this means that if I ask for, should this get completed or should this get failed? Okay, so let me console log message and console log message. So what should happen in this? Node promises purchase awesome failure. This is what we expected. Definitely, because this is also like holding our, you can say that if we are doing this in this fashion, the problem with this is that we are not clearing out this, you can say, timeout. So what actually should have also have happened is, you should say, potentially let or const p1 is equal to this, const p2 is equal to this, and what you should do is that if in case of a resolve, you should also clear out another timeout. Okay, so if you're clearing out another timeout, you wouldn't be facing this problem that even though you like uh, completed one of the tasks, like the problem here is that if this is 5 seconds and this is 1 second, now it would be a success, but still it will wait for 5 seconds. Okay, success, but it is still waiting for 5 seconds, because till the time other task is not complete, our resource wouldn't be free. Okay, so that's still a problem. We do not want to go with that. Okay, cool. So if we understand this much, then what we can go for next? If we know, okay, so promise is kind of a, a thing that is just, letting us know that, okay, so you're not done yet, but you will need to wait for some time. Okay, so I'm just giving you a promise that either would result in resolve or result in reject. and those are two callbacks that I can placehold at a later point. That then if I if I'm able to completely do this and I get a success, then execute this, and if I get a failure, if I get a reject, then execute this. Okay, so if I can do this, then potentially I can make some network call request, right? So if I have to make a network call request for this kind of scenario, what I can do for that. So let us install Axios for this. Okay, Axios is just a library that we can use for calling to another endpoints, right? So let us suppose we use GitHub API, new file, GitHub API.js, awesome, and we want to import this const Axios is equal to require Axios, awesome. Now what I want to do is URL. So const GitHub API is equal to, we want GitHub users API that is available at api.github.com/users. Awesome. Now with the help of Axios dot get, what I can do, GitHub API is pointing at this, and then I can refer to potentially my username, the Keen Warrior. Awesome. Potentially I could also move it as a separate username. Const user name is equal to Keen Warrior. Awesome. Plus username. Awesome. So this will return a promise. Response is equal to, awesome, console log response node GitHub API promise. And right now this promise is in a pending state. Okay, this promise is in pending state. So what does it mean? We potentially need to wait for this promise to get resolved. Okay, how could I do that? If I want this promise to get resolved, I could say, okay, so it is a promise should have a then means if it is successful. So if it is successful, then potentially it will give me a response. Cool. What is the response? Response in this Axios would have a data object associated. This is the complete response. This is a big, you can say, object. Out of this, only thing that is beneficial for us is this data. Okay, and in this data, we'll have some information like this: login, my GitHub ID, node ID, avatar something like this. Okay, my GitHub URL, GitHub image, GitHub profile pic, my different URLs that are available for images, for my followers, for different areas. These informations are available. Okay, so like even list of my followers would be available here on this API, and then different lists are available for different things. Okay, cool. So what's next? We can get information like this, and if there is an error, so for that we can have a catch, and catch can provide us further information on the error. Awesome. But still, if we say in the format of a list, if we want to say that we are doing this, now we are doing this, now we are doing this, now we are doing this. Let us suppose we want to say, when we got a response, we got this data. And potentially what I want to go for next is the list of organizations. Okay, the organizations that I'm part of. So if I want this list, then I will need to wait for this first response to happen. Cool. And when this first response is with me, I can take the advantage of this, you can say, organizations URL. Good. Awesome. This is the URL that we want to use next. Cool. So if we want to use this URL, what we could say, now promise2 const p2 is equal to axios.get response.data.organization URL. Cool. And then what's next? Maybe p2 dot then response. Awesome. Console log response.data. So first it will get my user information, then from there it will get these informations. But this is just two-step thing. If we get 2 3 4 steps deeper, you can understand that it is not going good. Okay, this is not the way you want the depth to happen. Okay, so what's next? How we could make it better? Okay, so for that, what we need to do next is async await. Okay, so what async await providing us is, if we if we mark a function as async, okay, we could create a function in JavaScript like function name, something like that, and then we can say like return or do some console log kind of a thing, console log hello, something like that. Okay, then we are calling this f name. Awesome, pretty normal. Node async await js hello, cool. We say this function is async. Nothing much would happen still. Let a is equal to something, console log a. Okay, promise undefined, because it is an asynchronous function, it will return a promise. But still, even if it is returning a promise, can I say that if something is happening here and something is happening here, so this will happen later and this will happen earlier? No, we cannot say that, because there isn't a wait. Okay, and it will return a promise only in the case, right, when we are not having anything. So if we say like return Anuj Kirk, okay, this promise is by default returning Anuj Kirk. So that means we could execute this and could execute this. There isn't a return that is expected out when we are pending for this. So that means that we are not waiting for anything. If we want to go for next, if we want to utilize the previous thing that we were trying to do, and we want to do it here in the format of first getting the information from our GitHub URL, and then proceeding next from for, let us suppose, listing out our potentially organizations in the format of async await, what I will do. So what you could feel in the format of this promises, that automatically we know that uh, in GitHub API. Yep. So we already know here that if we call this API, that is Axios.get GitHub API plus username, then this is returning a promise. Okay, and we know how to manage promise in the format of async function. So let us suppose fetch orgs. Okay, for this username. For this username, I want to fetch all the public organization this person is part of. How do I do that? Let response await exhaust.get GitHub API username. Awesome. In this response, I will get something. What? I will get response.data. So this await will force us. This await will force us to wait for till we get the response out of this. So response.await response.data organization URL. This is the URL that we want to call next, and let orgs is equal to, that is orgs response, so not the list of organizations yet. Response. Awesome. Cool. Console log dot data, and potentially just this. Now this will happen first. This will happen first, but after this. Okay, so how things will happen? You call for this line will get executed. Now this thing is to be executed, but this will return a promise. Okay, so we will get to know that after this is done, we from here we are returning this promise that after these things are done, we will be sending you something, but that response would be depending on what will be the response of this function. So from here, so after this, all things are pending, we get to execute whatever are happening after that, and after that event loop gets clear of that function, the main thing, then it will execute for the pending items that are to happen. Okay, cool, awesome. So if we have to do this, what we can say, first we will call for this will get executed, so we'll have but after this, then we will have this will happen first. After that, this line will get completed. This line will get completed. We will get this response. Okay, so let's go for this node sync await. Awesome. So first thing, but after this, cool. That's what I said. Then this will happen first. So maybe if it is getting confusing, we can say this will happen first. Then this will happen. Now this will happen. Okay, so the execution of this is starting already, like the network call we initiated before going for that, but the response would come at a later point. So because of that, I'm saying later. Okay, so cool. We'll do this. We'll get the response for this, and now we have organizations list. And let us suppose while going through this, potentially what we want to do is we just want to go through the list, and we simply want, let us suppose, um, just the IDs of that. Yeah, maybe just the login IDs of that or those organizations. So potentially we can say um, we want some org response because this is a list. So let orgs is equal to array, and for let orgs let org of organizations dot response data push org.login. Cool, and return logs. Cool. So now with the help of async await, what you're able to do is with the help of async and await, you're able to create async functions that will give you the promise. And with the help of await, you're able to write this in the format of more of a synchronous structure. Now it is not happening in a synchronous fashion, but because you're not depending on the things that will come later, you're able to write it down in a much cleaner fashion. Okay. And because of that, it will happen then. So this is not stopping anything. You are able to still call for the next items. You can do the next things here, but same things that are happening in the event loop that were happening in the case of the normal promise, async await is simply providing a better way to write things down so that you are not confused about what will happen next after what. Okay, and that is the major benefit of async await in such scenarios. Cool. Okay, and yeah, definitely when we have promises also provide a broad benefit, and we will be creating videos about it, but just still wanted to discuss how we are moving from callback to promises, and then promises are providing a wrapper additional benefit with the help of async await. And now what you can say, the promise that we received from here, let out is equal to good. And if we say what is this out, this is a promise. Okay, and this promise is pending right now, but I will wait for this. So out dot, then here we will get the list of organizations, Ocular, JBoss Outreach, JBug, Coding Juniors. Okay, so these are the public organizations I'm part of on GitHub. So that's the list here. Same way we could go for another thing, anything that we want to do. Cool. So that's a broader sense of how you want to do things. And in the next sessions we'll be discussing more about even multi not exactly multi-threading but thread pools, worker threads, and multi-processing kind of scenarios. So those things are pretty interesting in Node.js for understanding, because Node.js, sorry, or in a broad sense you can say JavaScript is pretty famous for having single thread kind of a scenario. And on the backend, generally single thread doesn't work very well for a lot of things, like if you have to compress a folder, okay, or if you want to uncompress something, like unzip something. So those kind of scenarios wouldn't happen very well with the, you can say, single threaded scenario, because a lot of things need to happen in a parallel fashion. Okay, and asynchronous programming provide us the benefit of just saying that we will do this later kind of a scenario, but still it is taking some processing at some point, and at that time you're not able to do anything in parallel. You're stuck. So if you are like unzipping something, and in a single thread environment you cannot do anything at that point. So potentially if it is a web server, you wouldn't be able to process any request when that file is getting unzipped. So for those kind of scenarios, we will discuss in the later session how you can handle those kind of scenarios in a Node.js environment. Till then, you go through this and let me know if you face any problems and doubts anywhere. See you guys. Bye.